the London Basin Company. A lot of the basins are handmade, hand finished. There's some new products here, which are the undermounted ones. So it's really I've always thought of this showroom as a little jewel box. So once we're not all crowded around, stick around at the end, have a drink, have some chocolate and have a look around. And Anna and Natalie are here to answer your questions. I'm Elspeth Pridham. I'm a design journalist. You can find me on the Insider website, but that is absolutely all you need to know about me, because the star of today's show is Emma Diaz. Hello, Emma. Thank you very much for joining us. And we can find you on Instagram at by Emma Diaz, correct? Yeah. Lovely. Thank you very much. Now, you are a colour consultant and influencer. So I've made a big effort to be colourful today. Emma doesn't need to, because she always is. So should we start at the beginning? Yeah. Tell me a bit about yourself. What is your background and how did you come to be a colour expert?
So my background has always been creative. I was actually in the film and animation business before, in that industry for 10 years. So I've always had a really critical eye for detail. And actually this kind of career was born through my own renovation project. I was heavily pregnant with my son and had to leave my career in the film industry. And we were kind of renovating our house at the same time, but we ran out of time, as most people do, and just had to paint the whole cottage white. And it wasn't until that happened that I realised how much of an effect it had on my well-being. I've never been surrounded by white before, and it took me a little while to figure out that was the issue. There was no colour in my home. I was lacking creativity, I wasn't feeling myself, I was uninspired, and when I realised that it was colour, I went on this journey to find it again and kind of reignite that creativity. I found Edward Bulmer paints because at the time they were the only kind of natural paint brand that had an extensive colour palette. Everything else was quite restricted within the natural paints, and we needed natural paint to work with our lime plaster and all the natural materials. So I started using their paints, and they noticed what I was doing online, and at the time they had no colour consultants. They loved how I was working with the brand and the paints, and they just said, come over to our house and train with us. And so I was trained by Edward and Emma as one of their first colour consultants.
So it's almost the opposite way around for you, that a lot of people would train in colour and then show an empathy and a good use of it, whereas you, sorry, I'm waving my hands.
Yeah, that's fine.
We wave our hands a lot when we talk. But yours was the other way around, that you showed this knack for colour and then trained in it. Yeah. And it's so interesting that you had an actual physical reaction to living in white.
Yeah. And then from there, obviously I've grown my own business, my own colour consultancy business. I still work with Edward, and I know their paints like the back of my hand, which is why you've got them here, because I'll probably be mentioning them. But yeah, I grew my business and also created my own sustainable furniture line, which is some of what you can see here, which also includes colour. So I wanted a way that people could bring colour into their homes without necessarily putting it on the walls. And that's why I built my furniture line, basically.
That's brilliant. So we've got a mixture of pictures. So this is your actual cottage, is that right? So some of these pictures of your actual cottage, and then some of them are from Edward Bulmer. So all of it is showing his lovely subtle paints. Yeah. And as you mentioned, the paint charts here shows that real depth and subtlety. Yeah. And they are healthy paints.
Yes, they're natural paints. Yeah. So very good for us.
I'm not very good with colour. I am quite sort of minimalist. I've tried really hard to be dressed colourfully today because I knew I was meeting you. So if I'm a novice, can you give me 3 top tips to introducing colour into my home?
Okay, so I think the first thing would be to really find the colours that make you feel happy. Don't think about what's going to look good in your home. Just think about what you feel good around. And this goes, if you're designers as well, like really get to know your clients and what makes them feel happy. And a lot of the time, clients don't know this. We don't know this. I didn't know it. And a really good way of doing that is to maybe think about, there's a kind of trick within the colour world, and it goes across to fashion as well, that you may have heard about, and it's seasonal palettes. So what I kind of say to people, if they really have no idea what colours they are drawn to, is to look at the seasons and to try and think about which seasons they relate to. Do you relate more to like the colours of autumn and the golden kind of hues and really kind of rich jewel-like earthy tones, or do you relate more to the delicate summer palette of gentle kind of summer evenings, antique rose, kind of that really gentle. So that's a really good way of doing it. But mainly the first one is to just think about what makes you happy. We all have different ways of feeling about colour, and that can come from our cultural kind of upbringing, subconscious and conscious memories. So it's really good to just tap into what makes us feel good. The second one would be to learn about the natural light in your home, and really understand it in depth and how it changes throughout the day. Also thinking about how you live in the evenings, what lights do you use, because that's going to affect the colour. Do you, I don't think many people do, but do you live by the big lights in the evenings, or do you live by a candlelight? And, really testing colours in those lighting scenarios, as well as thinking about how it changes throughout the day. Is it cool in the morning and warmer in the evening, or vice versa? And the third one would be, if you're really, really stuck, probably to think about a warm neutral, or something that isn't white but is a really good base that you can pull lots of different colours through accessories onto. So something like clove or cinnamon. A warm neutral is really easy to live with, and you can introduce a lot of different colours to it. They'd probably be my three.
Those are great tips. So something that makes you happy.
Yeah.
I must admit, I've never thought of that. I think I would have fallen into I think this colour would suit this room.
Yeah.
But if that colour doesn't make me feel great, then it's pointless, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it always surprises me how different people react to.
Yeah.
Because yellow is, I think, considered a happy colour. Yellow makes me feel a bit stressful, so
it can make you
different people are different, aren't they?
Yeah, it can make you feel anxious.
Yeah, and learning natural light, I think that's such a good point. There was a big trend a few years ago for everyone having grey kitchens. That might work in a south-facing room. It looks horrendous in a north-facing room. So
exactly.
One colour doesn't fit all, does it? And then a warm neutral, I think that's an excellent top tip. So three things, that's really useful. Thank you. Now, as a colour consultant, you go into people's homes, don't you? And actually, can you talk us through that process? What would be your starting point if someone invites you in?
So the first thing I want to do is to get a feel for the client. And like I said earlier, I want to understand their style. I have to adapt, obviously, to their style. I mean, if it's a client that's coming through me, then they normally know my style, and that's why they would like me to work with them. But if it's a client that I see through Edward, then they could have a completely different style. So I want to get to know them. I want to get to know what makes them happy. And so I look around their house. Even if I'm not working in those rooms, I want to see the rooms so that I can understand how they live, what they use the rooms for, what makes them feel good. So that's the first part of the process.
So to really spend some time in the house and with the client.
And just talking to them about how they want to use the space, how they want to feel in their home is the most important thing. If it's a kitchen that we're looking at, is that their main kind of living space? Are they going to spend a lot of time there, or is it literally just a space to cook in? Understanding all of those things really helps then to understand what we can do in making this space feel comfortable for them. And I think that is the main thing, is you have to feel comfortable with colour. And then from there, we obviously suggest various different things, and a lot of the time I'm happy to say that people decide, obviously with me, on colours that they really didn't expect to, and it kind of opens and broadens their minds to new things, and that's really exciting.
As you mentioned earlier, that we're all quite conditioned from our upbringing, or there might be a certain pink that makes you feel happy because your grandmother's bedroom was painted that, things like that. But sometimes we need to slightly override those as well, don't we? That we might be defaulting to something because we just haven't considered something else.
I think I'm going to look at Millie now, because Millie loves green, and I think a lot of people love green, and there is nothing wrong with that. There is so many greens that we can use in various different ways, whether it's tonally or with other colours. But I think people always think they would like green somewhere. And that's actually because our eyes don't have to change to see the colour green. So green is literally easy on the eye. It's the only colour that our eyes don't have to do anything to see it. And so someone says to me, I love green, I want green everywhere. For me to then be able to almost show them different options and expand that viewpoint is really interesting and really fun. So yeah,
that's quite a lot of therapy involved in what you're doing, isn't there?
Maybe, yeah. I hadn't thought about
You're getting really quite deep into people's thinking.
Yeah.
You mentioned adapting to people's style, and I've always really admired. I'm a journalist. I'm not a designer. I've always really admired that if I went into someone's house, I would just decorate it as if it was my house. Whereas you've got to go in and actually decorate it for them, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, you saw our cottage there with the red kind of architraves and stuff, and there's no point me thinking, oh, that's going to look great if someone can't live with that colour in their house. I know red's obviously it's got bigger over the last couple of years, but it is still a colour that people have different reactions to. I see red, which is why I'm wearing it today. I see red as powerful, lustful, passionate, but some people might see it as those negative connotations that you see with a red stop sign and the angry kind of. So it's really important for me to learn those things from my clients first, and understand that before we then put the colours into their home.
A lot of talking, isn't it? A lot of talking. And let's think a bit about pairing colours. So obviously there'll be a maybe a main theme colour in a room. How do you then put a secondary or a third colour with those colours?
There's lots of different ways. Some unexpected, some not so. But you can either, it depends on the client's style, but you can either obviously go down the route of kind of working tonally, and just kind of keeping everything the same hue but different kind of shades. You know, you see like other paint brands with different scales in theory on their color charts, and you can kind of work that way. Or if you are literally wanting to pair other colors with a green, for instance, I think it's just really important to keep it tonally the same strength. If you start mixing a strong color with a really delicate color, then that's where it's going to feel a bit jarring. But really, I believe if you get the right strength, the right tone of the colour, you can literally pair it with anything. I don't think there's any rules. I just think, you know, if you get the right natural light, use the right colour for the natural light in the space, and the right strength, then you can find
bring different
pairings. For
and
anything.
What about bolder colours? You mentioned that in your own home you've got red beams. Is it? I mean, it must be harder to decorate with a bolder, stronger shade, is it?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, not for you.
I think it just depends how you use them. Small rooms are great for strong colours. Small rooms generally lack a bit of light, so they can afford a colour with more pigment, something that's going to be really punchy. And I love using like rich, warm, strong colours in those kinds of spaces. Or you use a strong colour to kind of highlight those pieces of architecture, the skirting boards, the architraves, and then use a more neutral piece on the walls. And I think that's why it works in our landing space there, because I've got a very delicate wallpaper, but then we've kind of framed it almost with the red around the doorways and the skirtings and all the woodwork.
And I think people quite often don't think to do the woodwork, do they? So they're thinking of a wallpaper or the painting.
I think it's more so now. It's kind of a nice way now. Colour's more on trend. It's become more on trend over the last couple of years. I think it's become an easier way for people to introduce colour into their home without painting a strong colour all over the walls. It's certainly how I did it first. I think it's a good test. It's almost like bringing an accessory in to see if you can live with that colour. It's just a bit of a step forward from that.
And a highlight, and as you said, framing the other bits that are there and working with the architecture. No, interesting. Emma, what are the common mistakes that people make when they try to but just using colour in the home?
Not thinking about the light.
Yeah.
Not following trends.
Yes.
Not following trends. Following trends.
Yes.
And not kind of really thinking about what they like, if it's someone's personal home. But I think light and not understanding the light in the space is a massive, massive one.
So do you think it's, I mean, almost in some ways, when you had to paint your house all white at the beginning, it meant you lived in that house. So that gave you a moment to think, oh, this room's really light in the morning, or that one's dark, and whatever it is.
I mean, if I'm totally honest, my whole house looked grey. So I was just like, I need colour. Yeah. But yeah, it made me, it's really interesting to walk around your house and just see which rooms are lighter at different times of days, and just bear that in mind. But yeah, I think not understanding the natural light and going too strong, like first.
Yes.
If you go from not having any colour to a really strong colour, then it can feel really jarring, and you can then feel uncomfortable in your home. Our living room over the years has changed about 4 or 5 times, because that living room was my first ever project, like colour project. Yeah. And I didn't get it right. I got it wrong about 3 times before it's ended up, the colour that it is now. I really liked the colour that I had before, which was lilac pink. And after a couple of years, I realised that still wasn't quite hitting the mark for me. So I changed it again. But yeah, I think if I'd have gone just straight from white to the colour that it is now, I would have felt really uncomfortable.
Oh, interesting. So take the steps.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Obviously, the real emotional link you have to colour, and I think a lot of people have that, but just don't realise why they're not feeling very happy at home. Yeah. I mean, that terrible thing in hospitals of painting walls bright lime green, and then wondering why no one gets better.
Yeah.
Right, let's be more specific, because we are in this amazing showroom. I'm a massive fan. I know you are too, of London Basin Company, because they just add joy. So if we're thinking about bathrooms and cloakrooms, thank you. What are the best colours? This is a horrible general question, but what are the best, I can't say best colour, what is a good colour for a bathroom or cloakroom?
So I'm going to think of bathrooms and cloakrooms as 2 different things. So I'll think as a bathroom as a larger space and a cloakroom as a smaller space, normally a downstairs loo kind of thing. So like a lot of people probably, I think the cloakrooms can be a real kind of experimental, fun space. And if I have a client that is kind of a bit on the edge with using bolder colours, or they say, I love this colour, but I don't really want it in this room. If they've got a little cloakroom, then that's where I'll say to use it, because you're not in there, all being well, for very long. And it's a really nice surprise. If you kind of have a more kind of tranquil space for the rest of the house, it's a really nice surprise to walk into a bright yellow loo with a beautiful basin and everything. And it's just it's a fun kind of punchy, it can be a fun punchy kind of space to use colour in. Bathrooms, you'll see from my bathroom, and I don't know if Edward's included any of his, but I know he's done a few in the same colour. Bathrooms for me is the best colour is pink. And that can be earthy pinks or cooler pinks, but it goes back to historically, there we go, it's a nice tonal palette, but historically designers and architects used to use pink in normally their reception rooms, actually, to welcome their guests. And because most of the lighting at that time was candlelight, their guests would walk into these beautiful rooms that were pink, and they would just glow, because the pink from the walls and the candlelight would make them look amazing. And so I've kind of taken on that thought process and put it into my own style. And when I did our bathroom, it was white and grey, and now I walk in and it's a very small space, it's a cottage bathroom, but it's east facing, so in the morning we get a beautiful glow from the rising sun, and it just reflects all the pigment, and it makes you feel and look so much better. Usually there are mirrors in bathrooms,
Yes.
and you want you and your guests to walk in and feel good, rather than reflecting a blue or a green onto your skin that's going to make you look a bit grey.
That's such a good point, and I did not know that at all. Why would I mean, I look in the mirror in the morning, I'm just horrified. So to go in and think I'm going to have a rosy glow, that would be completely logical.
Yeah, and you can kind of use pinks tonally. I've actually used pink, blue and yellow in our bathroom. And yeah, I think it's a really good little secret to make you feel good when you walk into.
And as you say, I mean, pink, it could conjure up Barbie pink. It could be this lovely subtle sort of plaster colour pink. It can be. There's a spectrum, isn't there? So
yeah, I think
just introducing that.
Yeah, again, it depends on the light. I ended up using Queese in our bathroom, but I tried Jonquil because it's a very earthy pink, and in my head I thought that would work. And actually, where it gets dark in the evening, it was going more brown.
Yeah. Oh.
So that didn't have that same effect. So again, it comes back to understanding the light. But pinks, I don't think you can.
Okay, I'm going straight home to
in a bathroom.
Now, obviously, the basins here are very decorative. And I know you've had basins from London Basin Company, haven't you? How do you incorporate a decorative basin into a scheme? Because there must be people who come and look at some of these and they're so gorgeous, but then they don't quite know how do you, if you chose the basin, how then do you fit it into the room?
I think obviously looking at complementary colours. Yeah, obviously looking at complementary colours. If it is a basin that's kind of more one colour, these blue and white ones would look great. I know Natalie said that they've been used in the past with kind of plummy, winey reds and things. Obviously, blue and red together are complementary. So either going down that route on the colour wheel, or actually looking at these more decorative ones, maybe this one behind the TV, and picking out. I actually like to pick out the colours that are that you're seeing the least in that basin, but a colour that is there. So picking out, I can see there's like a tiny pink there, or the blue of the vine kind of there, and looking at it and just working with the colours that are there already, but maybe aren't very obvious.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't go for red, because red's quite imposing on that one as within the design. There's enough of that already there, but maybe one of the other colours in that. So that it creates that kind of contrast, but all feels like it goes together.
And I guess that works. Oh, absolutely, makes perfect sense. I guess it's the same with a fabric, isn't it? So
Yeah,
you don't
absolutely.
don't necessarily be obvious and pick the obvious colour.
Yeah.
There is a colour in it.
Yeah.
But pull that one out.
I mean, there's loads in that one that I could go on forever.
With that. Okay, no, because I know that is sometimes that people come into this showroom and kind of like, well, I love it, but I don't know what to do with it. Well, there is quite an easy solution, but it sounds to me like you just need to look and really see what's there,
and again work with the light.
Work with the light.
There's a common theme here, isn't there? Stop banging on about natural light.
No, it's true. It's the answer to everything, isn't it? Okay, now you said earlier that one of the mistakes maybe that people make is they choose a fashion colour rather than a colour they like. But I would like to slightly talk about colours. And have you noticed a particular trend in colours at the moment where we're going?
Yeah, there's obviously the colour of the year, which is the mocha mousse.
Yes.
And I think this year, those earthy, anything that's earthy, basically, I think that's going to come from that. I see brown and actually that mocha mousse colour as very much a neutral.
Yes.
So we can kind of use it as a backdrop to bring lots of colours into it. It can either be kept very hotel chic and just use browns and creams and keep it a bit more monochrome, or bring those jewel-like colours in on top of it. It works. It's so versatile, which I think is why it's obviously been named Colour of the Year. So there's that one, but to go along with that, I think, just kind of earthy greens. Greens are still going to be really big, but also those plummy colours. I mean, red's been very big across the last year, and those like deep wine-like hues. But I think now it's going to kind of evolve from the red kind of colour into more of a plummy kind of deep earthy.
Some real richness
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be lovely.
A yellow, I think, is still, people are getting more confident with yellow. So, yeah, but they're the things I've noticed.
Yeah, yes, and I bet you go around,
So
you're
far.
just eyes open all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Is there a colour that you would never use?
Grey, if you can class grey as a colour.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like to keep an open mind. I wouldn't say I would never use it, but I struggle to see. I always think there's something better, unless someone is really kind of, that's just their style and they just want a grey room.
Yeah.
I always feel like there's more potential there. There's more to do with that space.
It became a very lazy colour, didn't it, a few years ago, that it was just, yeah, I don't know. It's not a colour that makes you happy, that's for
No,
sure.
it's not. And actually, I haven't been asked for grey for years. And I know Edward probably doesn't sell much grey when I've spoken to them. So, yeah, I think people have broadened their minds on how to use colour, and that's really nice. It makes me.
Do you think in general that people are becoming more colour confident?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think we'll see that this year in the trends. There's obviously colour drenching has been a thing over the last couple of years, and now Little Green have just announced double drenching, which is another thing. And I think it's just, again, evolving from people being more confident with colour. And I think a lot of that's come from lockdown and us all being stuck in our homes for so long. We need to make them happy spaces.
Yes, and you can experiment. And like you said, if you get it wrong, then it's okay if we get it wrong as well, isn't it? We can paint the room and then paint, and I guess that's the joy of paint. You just go over it again. So my final question to you actually is, I was going to say, what's your favourite colour? But that sounds a bit like I'm 14 and I want to go out with you. So I'm actually going to say, what's your favourite colour combination?
I was talking to Millie about this earlier. I don't know, because I love colour, and I love the challenge of finding the correct colour for the correct space. So my favourite colour combinations can change. I do love reds. I love pairing them with neutrals, but I'm wearing a blue jacket today. I love that kind of combination, but yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question.
No, well, then that's a good answer,
because
isn't it? Because
I just
open to colour.
Yeah. But red's my colour, and I don't know, I'm just drawn to it.
Yeah.
And I really love that it's now become a acceptable colour to have in the home, and people have learnt to use it, because that's what I did 5 years ago. I had to teach myself how to use it, and I've paired it with many different things, yellows, but I don't know, I really like yellows and greens as well. They work really well. You might see a couple of pictures. I've actually used them in two different ways in the cottage. So I've got a more subtle green and a more subtle green and yellow in our kitchen. So tonally, that decision was made to represent the yellow in our Cotswold stone, because you look out into the garden, you see the yellow in the Cotswold stone, you see the green of the plants kind of growing up the walls. And that was an extension. I wanted the garden to feel like an extension from the kitchen, so we painted the kitchen in the same colours. Whereas in the porch and the boot room, where I've got the London Basin Company basin, it's a much darker space. It's a smaller space. It's a muddy space, you know. We walk in there with our muddy wellies, and I needed a strong colour in there. So I've used Olympian green and Persian, and it's very different. I've used the same colour combination, but in a very different way. So probably a green and a yellow as well.
But I think that's interesting in itself, isn't it? That if you have a go-to colour combo, you can use it. Doesn't mean you then can't use it in another room, but maybe next time the walls are more of the yellow, and then there's less. That's lovely, isn't it?
But then I've got a blue basin in there, which is that one up there.
That's lovely.
So it just kind of just seems to work.
Well, it definitely does work. Can I just ask, do you always get? Are they professional photographs?
No, they're actually mine.
So good at colour and good at blooming photography.
Well, it's the film background, cinematography, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd love to have it shot professionally. I have done.
You need to. If anyone's had a look at Emma's Instagram feed, you just want to move to the Cotswolds, really. It's just lovely. Well, that's all from me. So does anybody have a question for Emma? Okay, that's fine, but we are going to linger around now. So if anybody wants to know anything about the basins, then Anna and Natalie are obviously here, can tell you everything. Emma's going to hang around for a little bit as well, so because I normally find everyone does want to ask you a question. They just don't want to put their hand up in class. So thank you. That's been such a enlightening conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you
all for coming. Oh, you've got one question. Really far away.
How would you encourage people, because we talk about it a lot, so how would you encourage people to get out of their comfort zone? So you spoke about any love-free.
Yeah.
It's what makes me happy. And
Yeah.
I've obviously gone with that in my home, as you know, but I have gone out of my comfort zone with different things. Like, how would you encourage people to, I suppose, like, be brave? Like, what's like a first step? Because I feel like colour, you know, talking about all these bold colours and everything like that,
I'd maybe look at, if there is a colour like you're saying you love green, maybe look at what complements that. So you could look at, again, what's next to it on the colour wheel, or you could look at its opposing colours. So, you know, green and pink is a natural, you know, it's been tried and tested so many times. But again, it's finding the right tones of both of them to work with what you already have in your home. And then if you had one room that was green, like paint an adjoining room in that pink, so it kind of flows.
like a house.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I would say focus on that colour that you like and then find something that works with that one, rather than just thinking, oh, I don't know what else I like.
Yeah.
Find a complementary colour that goes with that.
Nice as always.
Yeah.
And then just adding on a bit more. Any more questions?
Yeah, actually, touching on that.
Yeah.
I painted my decking pink,
Yeah.
like a really soft clay paint. You're going to hate me, but I painted the wardrobes grey because I couldn't. The colour didn't work. And I wanted it to be a different colour. I didn't want, you know, I have busy wardrobes.
Yeah.
I'd hate it.
Yeah.
But I still struggled with what colour.
So I actually see pink as a neutral.
Yeah.
I see a lot of colours as a
now
neutral.
you
I
said
said brown,
what's
but
it, like
pink,
green or blue?
especially if it's an earthy pink.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could put green with it, you could put blue with it, you could put red with it if you want more of a punch. So they're probably three. But like in our bathroom, like I've put a really subtle yellow as well, which is quite pretty. So it depends on the feel that you want from the space and whether you want it to look smart or feminine, and that's where learning about the clients comes in.
Bedroom. So it was like, well, wins that you paid my bedroom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, I would be exactly the same. I think I've been super brave with pink, and now I'll do white or I'll do grey. Yeah, exactly. And it's just and look, it's not the end of the day if you paint it a colour and then you change your mind.
Exactly.
And then all you need to do is like a cushion or something that pulls those two colours together. And you're sorted.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anybody else? No? Okay, well, we are going to clap you now, so thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll clap you.